Hi guys, welcome back, and today I want to share some of our favorite chapter books for boys. I am doing this video in collaboration with Shalise from Sodbuster Living. This was her idea to do this exact prompt. I have been wanting to share more chapter books for kids on here, and when she suggested this, I jumped right on it because it was the perfect idea. So I suggest that you go over and check out her channel and subscribe, watch her video like this. And she has other videos all about like books, homeschooling, and lately she's been talking a lot about minimalism too, which I think is really cool because I've been thinking about sharing a video saying why I'm no longer a minimalist. So it's interesting to see someone else at like on a different journey. If you're coming here from Shalise's channel, thank you for coming over. I'm Chantel and I live in the Canadian prairies where I homeschool my kids and read a lot of books. We read a lot together and I read a lot on my own. So I share a lot about books and homeschooling here, as well as just like other tidbits of our life. I have a number of different books I'm going to be sharing today, and I try to kind of range it anywhere. Like I have some funny books that I know my son has loved, and some more like meaty books that as a parent I really like him reading. And I mean, it's okay to read books that are silly and fun too, but I kind of wanted to keep it diverse. So you'll see a little bit of both of those on here. And I've tried to arrange them in a way that the first ones are kind of for, you know, like the younger ages. The first book actually I usually start reading to my kids when they're 4, and then we're going all the way up to about grade 4 today. I will leave all the books linked below, as well as on my website and intentionallife.me, so you don't have to worry about scribbling these all down. Just remember the ones that stick out to you and they'll be linked below. Okay, the first book I have is Charlotte's Web. Now this has been my first read aloud to both of my kids. When they turned 4, then we started reading a chapter a day. This is such a classic book about Fern who rescues a pig from being slaughtered because he was the runt, and the incredible journey that Wilbur goes on when a spider takes interest in him and starts writing words in her web. And the kids always love this book. I'm surprised actually. My kids are very diverse, and they just both loved this book. I always recommend this as a first chapter book if you're looking for something to read aloud to like preschool kids. And I mean, older kids love it too, but you can start this one when they're really young. Shortly after that, we like to dive into The Mouse and the Motorcycle and the whole Ralph S. Mouse series. There's 3 books. There's The Mouse and the Motorcycle, Ralph S. Mouse, and Runaway Ralph. I don't think they're in that order. We often listen to these on audio because they're great on audio. And it's a story about a little mouse who rides a toy motorcycle. He finds it in his house, which is a hotel, one day, and he realizes once he makes the noise of the motorcycle, it actually drives. And he, you know, gets into a few scrapes. This one my son will often listen to on audio on repeat, the whole series, and I'll often catch him just like giggling at certain parts because Ralph is maybe not the brightest mouse. He gets himself into a few little pickles, and my son just loves that. Most of the books on this list have a male main character. To me, I feel like boys, well, anyone, like they like to listen and read books that have characters that are fairly similar to them. So I tried to make sure there wasn't like too many girls in this list. But this book is my son's absolute favorite book. He has listened to it on audio probably 80 to 100 times. That is how much he loves it. And he loves it because it's silly, and also because the girl's father has the same name as him, but he just loves this book. And if you've been around here for any length of time, or on my blog any length of time, you know that that book is Pippi Longstocking. Pippi is a completely ridiculous girl. She lives on her own. She is strong. She can lift up an entire horse. She just does all things weird and silly. Sleeps in her bed backwards. She has a pet monkey, and this is just something that my son just listens to over and over and over again. Next on the list is like another silly one. I generally tend to like start off with silly ones with kids, well, especially depending on their interests and the kind of person that they are. But I feel like for my son, it really captured him and got him hooked on books, and then since then we've kind of ventured out. But the next one is Mr. Popper's Penguins. Mr. Popper acquires a penguin and soon acquires an entire family of penguins, and this is their story of going on the road with a traveling group of penguins. And let me tell you, penguins, they're not really meant to stay in hotels and live like humans, so there's all sorts of funny things that happen throughout the book. Another really fun one, and one that I like to read aloud to my kids, is Mrs. Pigglewiggle. She is an old woman in town who the kids kind of gravitate to. She has all sorts of different cures for kids. So she has like, well, there's a whole series. There's, I think, 3 or 4 books in the series. So there's the won't pick up toys cure, the answer backer cure, the selfishness cure, the radish cure. There's all sorts of different cures. So depending what struggle it is that parents are having with their children, Mrs. Pigglewiggle has a way to fix it. And it's always something completely ridiculous, but it always works. And this is a really fun one because every chapter is a different cure, so you can easily read a chapter a day. I feel like I would be completely remiss if I didn't mention Roald Dahl on this list. Honestly, you could list all of his books on here, but this one is my son's favorite, and it is George's Marvelous Medicine. He listens to this one so many times. My daughter's currently reading it aloud to him, and they just giggle over the different things that George does. I've actually never even read this book, but I feel like I know a lot about it just from what they've talked about. One of my personal favorite silly books, and this one is fantastic on audio, is Fortunately the Milk. This book is about a father who goes out one morning to buy milk for his kids because they needed milk for their cereal. So he goes out, and honestly, he got a little distracted talking to a friend, but he makes up this gigantic story about why he, what took so long. And he ends up meeting pirates and dinosaurs and all sorts of different things. It's just a completely ridiculous book, and Neil Gaiman, he reads it with such expression that it's hilarious. I highly recommend this one as a family read aloud or audiobook. We all really love the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, as well as like the entire Narnia series. Now, people will differ between whether or not you should start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe or The Magician's Nephew, which is book 1, but C.S. Lewis wrote this one first, and that one as a prequel. You can do it however you want. Personally, I read this one first, and then we read The Magician's Nephew, and I really liked being able to piece things together. Like, you find out the lamppost in here, and in The Magician's Nephew, you realize when that actually came in. So I feel like everyone knows about the Chronicles of Narnia. In this one, we follow the 4 siblings who go through a magical wardrobe into this land where it is always winter and never Christmas. And they help the creatures out, battle a witch. And it's just an all-around, like, fun read. It's actually quite short, but so much goes on, and we really love this book. One that I recently picked up from the thrift store is 3rd Grade Detectives. I had never heard of this book before, but it was really cheap, so I bought it, and it has another book on the other side. So we read this one, The Clue of the Left-Handed Envelope, and it is just like a short kids mystery book, nothing too extreme. But what was really cool is it has some different clues in here. So in this one, you've got a few different letters, and you need to figure out how to solve this clue. And here it actually says envelope. So that was the first clue they had to figure out. And my kids liked that interactive part of this book. So for that reason, they really liked the 3rd Grade Detectives. I feel like the next books kind of take a jump now, whereas those ones were like maybe, up to like grade 2. These next ones I feel like are 3, 4, and up. And my son he's just finishing grade 1 right now, and he has read/listened to some of these and really enjoyed them. So just because they're kind of for a little bit older doesn't mean that younger kids can't understand them and won't enjoy them. Also, a disclaimer, a couple of them I only have book 2 of right now, because during this time we've kind of been acting as a bit of a library for other middle grade kids who don't have as many books as we have. So I'm missing book 1 of a few different series right now because we were lending them out to various children. So the first book in this kind of section here that I want to share is The Mysterious Benedict Society. Now this one's book 2, but we have listened to, I think, all of this series, and we follow, I guess it starts out, there's like an ad in the newspaper where they're looking for unique children, and so we follow some kids who pass some tests, and it's a fascinating book. They end up becoming what they call the Mysterious Benedict Society. They have to spy on some people and go on some perilous journeys, as this one is called, The Perilous Journey. It's funny, but it's also like thought-provoking. It's a mystery, It's also slightly like fantasy, sci-fi in some ways, and it's really good for all different kids. One that I don't own the actual book for, but it is a book called Pax, and in this one we follow a boy who has to give up his dog, which is actually a fox, because he is moving, and it's a really heart-wrenching story. We listen to it on audio, and we follow the boy in some of the chapters and the fox in some of the chapters, and a fascinating journey that they both go on. I would highly recommend that one. Next up, I want to share Wonderstruck. I actually got rid of the dust jacket for this, but personally I like this cover better. Now, this is by Brian Selznick. Now, if you've read any of his books, you'll know that he does a lot of illustrations in between. So this one, it starts out with illustrations. There's quite a few. And then it goes into text. Now, I think his other book, The Invention of Hugo Cabret, is more well known. There is a movie on it, but personally I really liked Wonderstruck. In this one, we follow a boy who, he goes blind fairly early into the book, and he is looking for his father. And then how this book is laid out is the text is following the boy named Ben, and then the pictures are following a girl that lived years earlier. So it's an interesting combination. So we follow the girl for a bit, like through a number of pages, and then we go into like a lot of pages of pictures here, and then we go into the text and we follow the boy, and eventually these two stories merge together. So I would recommend this one. It's a unique way to format a book, and I feel like it really draws you in. Okay, next up, another one that we don't own is The Green Ember, the whole series. I've listened to the first book myself, and my kids just fell in love with it. My daughter has listened to the series so many times, and I think that she has declared it her favorite series. So in it, we follow mainly two rabbits, Heather and Pickett, and they are on a journey. They end up coming across a group of rabbits, and they live with them, and they do end up in this battle together. There is a whole series. I don't actually even know how the rest of the books go, but my daughter highly, highly, highly recommends it. This next one has a female main character again, but has a number of supporting characters who are boys. So I think that boys would like this book just as much as girls. And this is Keeper of the Lost Cities. In this book, we are following a girl who very quickly learns that some of these abilities that she has, like being able to read people's thoughts, are actually because she is an elf. And she gets whisked away into this elf world and learns that her powers are a lot stronger than others, like a lot of the others her age, and she's able to do things that other people aren't. And it's a really like fascinating quick read. I've read book 1 and book 2 myself, and I'm actually really interested in finishing the series. One that we read quite a while ago is The Wild Robot. This one actually really surprised me. So in it, we follow a robot who, for whatever reason, she kind of got lost. I think she fell out of an airplane or something. She got turned on in the middle of a forest, and she makes friends with these forest creatures. She starts to learn about them and become friends with them. And at the end, I found myself tearing up. I'm like, this is a fake robot. Why am I tearing up? But it was such a well-written story. Okay, next up, one that I've been raving about a lot lately, and that is the Wing-Feather Saga. Once again, I have book 2 because book 1 is being lent out. In this story, we follow 3 siblings, Janner, Tink, and Lily. Oh, and there's so much that happens right at the beginning that I can't even tell you very much at all. It is a 4-book series, and we listen to it together as a family, like in the evenings at supper. It probably took us about 9 months to go through it, and we were all captivated the entire time. If there's any book out of these that I list that you pick up, I would recommend this one being it. Speaking of audiobooks, an audiobook series that we are currently listening to, I actually forget what the actual series is called, but the first book is called Sir Kendrick and the Castle of Belle-Lyon, and in it we follow some knights who are battling some other knights who work for the Dark Prince. So there's like the good prince, and then there's the Dark Prince, and I think you can catch the illusion there. So far, it's been a really good book. There's quite a bit of fighting. This is the very first book where my son has like audibly said that he does not want to stop listening at the end of our meal. And so I feel like that is huge praise right there. Okay, and the last book I have to share is Redwall. We listened to this one probably about a year ago. In this book, there is a group of rabbits living in a monastery, and very early on, a group of rats try to come in and take over. And throughout this book, we see them set up for battle. We see them rally together, solve a mystery, and even find some unlikely helpers throughout the book. This is an entire series. It was written in the 80s, and I only learned about it a couple of years ago. So I know it is fairly well known, but I feel like not enough people are actually talking about it and reading it. I would highly recommend this series. Okay, so those are some of my favorite books that I think are really good for elementary aged boys. And when I say boys, I also mean girls as well, but these ones mainly have boy main characters or kind of have like some silly vibes that boys tend to like. I 100% think that girls would love these as well, but sometimes it can be harder to find books for boys. So that's why it's for boys, I guess. If you have any book recommendations that you think that are great for boys that I haven't mentioned here, I would love it if you would leave a comment below. Leaving comments and giving a thumbs up to the video and subscribing actually really help me out. So I would love it if you would do one or all three of those.